Okay, welcome back to Battle Ready. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday, the 12th of July. Gee, we're almost halfway through July. Goodness. We are in Judges chapter 14. We're going to pick up with Samson where we left off last week. But before we start, I'm going to ask Laura to kind of bring us up to speed.
So Manoah and his wife, who the Bible doesn't name, were promised by the angel of the Lord to have a son who was to be dedicated to God. He's going to be for the beginning of their freedom from the Philistines, for not to finish it, but he's going to be the start of what God's going to do to remove their enemies. The nation of Israel is ruled by the Philistines at that time, and it's because that they are again involved in idol worship and in other things. And
we said it was about 65 years from Jephthah, right?
After this Jephthah that we talked about before we started into Samson. And we know that he was supposed to be separate. The big message to Samson's mother was that she had to be careful what she ate. She had to be careful what she did, or unclean things she came into contact with, because her son, from the time he was born, God wanted him to be separate from the people all around him, right?
His birth is announced,
for a
right?
special purpose. And I want to start there with that thought and think, we've said it a few times, that as we go through each one of these cycles where Israel falls away from God and is redeemed by a leader who God raises up, that these leaders tend to picture where the nation is spiritually. And what we would learn from Samson should remind us that God intended for his people to be separate. They weren't supposed to be they weren't supposed to look like, be ruled like, behave like,
worship like,
do
anything like,
work like, live like anybody else around them. They were conspicuous on purpose because it was an example to everyone else that God was doing something special with these people, and that he could show what we mentioned this last time, the nations around them, the power of God, right?
They would see that difference and want to know what
it wasn't
about.
You're accidentally strange. God intentionally separated them out from, whether you're talking about circumcision or whether you're talking about the Sabbath or whether you're talking about whatever.
Offerings, whether you're talking about whatever, anything.
The fact that there is one God in every nation around them serves a pantheon of gods, and they are worshiping the one God, right? They're always different on purpose.
And I guess that's a really good point to start off with. Because
even
in the world today, the church is supposed to be different.
You're not supposed to fit in. You were never, ever created, raised, or redeemed to fit in with this world. And as a matter of fact, if you do, the Bible says, when all men speak well of you, right, you're supposed to beware, right? Because that's not how it's supposed to work. Jesus said, they hated me, they're going to hate you. And we think, I don't want anybody to hate me. I surely don't either. But God does not want us to act like this world. We're supposed to be different. And Samson, as a picture of where this nation is doing just what the country of Israel, the nation of Israel is doing. They're blending in. You can't tell a difference. As he starts making his own choices as an adult, choice after choice after choice is to be just like everyone around him, and not that separated one that God asked him to be from the beginning. But what this story is about is not that God has lost control of Samson, but that God, despite Samson's rebellion and sin, accomplishes his purpose just as he intended to do. God knew what would happen, knew who he was, and offers his grace in an amazing picture in Samson's life.
That's true. That's a very
just like he does with Israel.
Just like he does with us.
Just like he does with us.
Yes. And it's interesting that sometimes, so one thing I just want to caution us with, because I saw it today when I was going through looking at material and looking at references. We can have an opinion. It's okay to have an imagination, have an opinion, but we can't say that God said this unless he actually says this. So we have to be careful in the story of Samson. There's a lot of places where we disagree with him, or we don't think he should, or he does, or we don't. There's all kinds of, he's a character of contrast. He's like, you constantly have to look at what he's doing, and we don't have a lot of places where it says he thought this.
I'll just say, if Samson is frustrating to you, that's the point.
And he is.
Because you are frustrating as well. You are the person who is filled with, yes, I want to follow the Lord, but yes, I want my own way. And no, yes, I want to do what I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to stand out or be conspicuous. I don't want anybody to look at me as somebody that's different. We are as frustrating or more frustrating than Samson. So when you read that don't worry about that reaction. That's where you should be.
That's true. But don't have it say things it doesn't say.
Right.
Because there's a lot of stories that I read today and thought, oh my goodness, that doesn't say that. But notice also that some of the Greek gods and Roman gods, like Hercules, kind of remind you. It's funny how when you go back and you look at the true Bible characters, you can see where man can take the story and go somewhere else with it.
Well, just for historical notes, the Philistines are an early group of Greeks. That's who they are. That's who their ancestors are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that you can find in Greek myths that have roots in biblical theology. And there are a lot of authors that became part of the Greek nations that were Jewish.
Which is a good thing
that brought
to
those
know,
stories with them.
because everybody seems to think, well, see, they got it. Well, they got it from here.
Changed.
Yeah, but they made
Every
it different.
nation on the face of the earth has a flood story. They're all a little bit different. They're all a little bit different. But we all know there was a global flood.
Because we have the word for it.
Right? And the evidence is everywhere we look. Not to get on that subject, I'm just
No,
saying
but that is a
we have the root the same.
I guess the point I'm making is don't say things it says when it doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to do, especially now as we start to get into some vague areas. All right, Judges chapter 14, verse 1. Chapter 13 was all about the angel appearing to the wife and the husband saying, oh no, now we're going to die. And she said, no, you're not going to die. But why would he come talk to us if we were going to die? So here we are. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife.
Okay, let's talk about Timnath.
Okay.
If the nation of Israel had done according to the will of God, Timnath is part of the inheritance of the tribe of Dan from the beginning. But they did not completely drive the Philistines out.
They did not.
And at this point, the Philistines are not only in control of part of the tribe of Dan's territory, but the entire nation. So Timnath should be a city in Dan. It's not. It's a city that belongs to the Philistine nation, right? But actually belongs to God's people because he gave it to them, right? So that's an interesting thing. He goes to this city. So here's this boy.
Have you seen Timnath before in Scripture?
No, not that I remember.
This is where he was told Tamar, saying, thy father-in-law goeth to Timnath to shear the sheep. Remember when Judah didn't give her the
Tamar,
yeah. So this is where she put on her widow's garment and followed him to Timnath.
Interesting. So trouble in Timnath and trouble again. So in this story, in this account, Samson goes to this place. It's as if I'll tell you a story that illustrates this to me. Okay, so when my kids were little and we would go to the beach, when I would take Olivia was a baby. When she was old enough to walk toward the ocean, we'd put her down, try to put her down on the sand. She'd draw up her legs. She wouldn't touch the sand. She wouldn't touch the ocean.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Now Lena would get in the water with me, and that would be okay when she was real little. But she didn't want to touch the sand. The sand was hot. She didn't want to touch the sand. Didn't like the way it felt. Don't put her down in the sand. Only put her. And you got to hold on to her in the water. Adam was about the same. Okay, so that's what I'm expecting is normal when they're little and they're just encountering the sand and the sun and the beach and the surf. So I take little baby Emma to the ocean. And I try to put her feet down on the sand. Emma's legs are moving before she touches the sand to run straight as an arrow into that ocean as fast as she can go. Just that it makes me think of Samson in this circumstance because before he was born, Jesus visited with his mother and father. We know that, but because of the hints that he gave us in the previous chapter, that this is actually Christ that's come to them to deliver this message. He's been separated. His mother was separated. They call him Sunshine. He's
Sunshine.
little son, or here's our sweet little sunshine that's been separated for this purpose of God. That's his name.
Oh, I wish he'd have thought of that when he wrote his commentary.
Sweet little sunshine. But what's he do? The minute his feet hit the ground, he runs in the opposite direction of where he's supposed to go. Mm-hmm. He runs toward the Philistines, not to fight against the Philistines, not to rescue the nation from the Philistines, but to find what they enjoy and take some of that for himself. So that what he goes down there to see, it says, is the daughter of the Philistines. And he's like, goes back, tells his mom and dad, that's who I want to marry. Mom and dad don't go, they don't, at least in scripture, they don't go, they say, why don't you pick someone from our nation? Is there nobody in our nation?
What it says is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren? He's done
but
this before.
But they don't say, absolutely not. God has a purpose for you. They don't say that. Mm-mm. Right? They say, oh, well, okay. Right? And they go and get this woman.
Don't you think it's interesting that he had to go to mom and dad to get them to go get the woman?
But it's like, okay, from this point onward, we're going to watch him continually run from his calling. Right? Yeah. God has called you to do this. God has said this is who you are. And it seems to be, even though Samson is a hero, and that God uses him despite himself, because every chance he gets, he runs counter to the calling of God. He goes as far from it as he can get. He's supposed to stand against the Philistines. That's what they were already told, to be the beginning of their freedom, and he runs to marry it. Mm-hmm. Does it remind you of the nation of Israel? God says, I want you separate, not because God is racist or God is cruel or God is unkind to any other nation, because I want your children to know me, because I want you to train your children to know the promises of God, and for me to be able to give them what I intend to give them to inherit God himself as their leader, right? Mm-hmm. And they run straight away to be like everybody else, as fast as they can go, seems to be.
Their little feet just
they go find what the other nations are doing and what they think is beautiful, what they think is special.
And he comes back to get
He's
his
a perfect
mother
picture of what they've done.
So I wonder if his father and mother shouldn't have said, no.
Well, we won't do that for you.
But they don't. Because verse 3 says, then the father and his mother said unto him, is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, get her for me,
uncircumcised again is
for
not,
she pleased me well.
It
just means not Jewish, not of that nation.
Not separated.
Mm-hmm. Not of that nation.
The circumcision was all about that's what we said from the beginning. Separating them out from the nations all around. Why are you going after these ones who are not separated to God? Why are you joining yourself with those who are not going the same direction you are?
Well, I mean, what can you say about that today? We see that all the time today.
As fast as you can go.
We'll change it.
What's the draw for you? And I'm talking to the people listening that are Christian. What is the draw for you? That you're scared to death you're going to miss out on what the world has. You know God's real. You know He's true. You know what His Word says because you've known since you were born. But there's this draw to you that you don't want to miss out. So I'm going to go find out what they're doing and what they think, just in case I don't want to miss out on something that might be good for me that I might want to do. Why do we do that?
Because we don't trust God.
Why did Israel do that? Why did Samson do that?
Mm-hmm. We don't trust him to know what he's talking about. It makes us different. Nobody likes to be different, do they? Maybe that's he's supposed to be called out. He's supposed to be separate, but nobody wants to be different. All right, verse 4.
Or he thinks he's above the consequences of it. He's specially chosen. I'm special. So I know I'm not supposed to go marry people that aren't worshiping the God that we know. But I'm going to do it anyway because, see, I can handle it. And I'm strong and I'm sunshine. Right? I'm gifted.
I wish Rick was here.
I'm the little ray of sunshine. I can handle this. So go get her for me. I want her.
Yeah. And he seems to be the only child, so...
It seems to be.
Kind of gets his way, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. All right, verse 4. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord that he sought an occasion against the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had domination over Israel. So even though they're kind of not...
He's definitely not doing what he was called to do. Mm-mm. God is using what he's doing to accomplish his purpose.
So there's the other part that I think is another main... I like what you said about how he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. But there's the other part, that God can use whatever you are, whether you realize it or not. When you make the wrong decisions, he can still use that.
You need to go no further than Matthew chapter 1 and Luke chapter 2, where the genealogies are found, and read the names in those lists to find out that people who ran headlong away from the will of God were used perfectly to accomplish the purpose of God in the bringing of Jesus Christ. This is what the nation is doing. This rebellious, what's God call them, stiff-necked, backsliding, right? Adulterous people. God used, they didn't thwart any part of God's plan, although they suffered greatly for their sin. Don't miss that. It's not like what God said didn't matter. It's just like what God said is going to come to pass despite you or with you, however you want it to be.
Yeah, it's your choice.
But they're still, he's not even slowed down. So it's like they don't see that God is using this, again, like he said he was going to start removing the Philistines over top of the authority of Israel, to restore them back to the place they need to be, despite the fact that Samson is not doing what God asked him to do, stay separate.
It doesn't say Samson knew it. It says
it says they didn't know it.
It says, but his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord, that he sought an occasion against the Philistines. So,
to remove the Philistines.
Samson's not even thinking about that.
Samson's not trying to find an occasion against the Philistines. God is. God is removing.
And Mom and Dad don't understand why he's doing it, but here he goes doing this. For at the time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. I noticed that we won't hear Samson too many times until the very end say, now God, what do you want me to do here?
He knows.
We don't hear it much.
He just doesn't care.
We don't hear it.
Yeah.
Verse 5, then went Samson down, and his father and his mother, to Timnath, and came to the vineyards of Timnath, and said,
what's wrong with that?
Behold, a young lion roared against him.
What's wrong with going down to the vineyards?
He's not supposed to have grapes.
Either is his mother.
No. Well, that was when she was pregnant.
Did it say?
I don't know if that would continue or not. But they're not supposed. He's not supposed to be anywhere near.
We talked about that Nazirite vow from Numbers being a temporary thing for most people, but when the messenger of God comes to her and to her husband and explains he doesn't say this is a temporary condition.
He says, no, you're going to conceive a child. Angel of the Lord said unto Manoah, of all that I said unto the woman, let her beware. She may not eat of anything that cometh of the vine, neither let her drink any wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let her observe.
Right. And her son, right? Separated out.
Let me see. Way back when the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said, behold, now thou art barren and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head. For the child shall be a Nazirite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines.
So there's no...
It doesn't say she can't, but
it doesn't say she can.
It doesn't say she can.
It doesn't put a limit on that. No. So where are we going to go to get a wife? The vineyard.
Yeah, whatever.
We got a lot of people in church right now that are in a lot of pain because they went to the vineyard to get a wife or a husband. They went the exact opposite of the route God gave them to find that person, to find someone to be with.
That's true.
And they suffer for it, right?
They do.
Not to over-spiritualize everything, but that's a really important point.
But he went straight to the vineyard.
Way back when
I wrote, what's he doing there?
What are you doing in the vineyard?
He's not supposed to be even there. He's not supposed to touch them, eat them, drink them. He's not supposed to mess with them at all in all of this.
And on the way meets a lion.
A young lion.
Right? A young lion. So let's see what happens with that.
Verse 6. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he rent him as he would have rent a kid or a baby goat. Yeah. And he had nothing in his hand, but he told not his father or his mother what he had done. And what's he touching?
Well, He killed it. I'm not sure that counts because he's going to be a warrior who fights
people.
battles.
Okay.
Right? Not kills, but fights battles.
Okay, then
but later on it's coming that he's done.
And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. Mm-hmm. And after a time he returned to take her, and turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took thereof in his hands, and went on eating, and came to his father and mother, and gave them, and they did eat. But he told not them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of a lion.
Okay, Samson, if you're in heaven and you can hear this, that is disgusting.
Yeah, you're right. A rotten lion carcass.
Here's a dead, rotten lion body with bees flying out of it, and he's like, ooh, tasty. Honey. And he reaches in and grabs the honey and eats it out of that dead lion. One, he's not even supposed to touch a dead thing. That's an unclean
That's different than killing
That
it.
lion is an unclean beast that he's not supposed to have anything to do with, technically. He's not supposed to touch any unclean thing while he's under the Nazarite vow. But to go ahead and be so unthoughtful of that vow that you dip into that dead body and you eat what's inside of it.
And then you give it to your mom and dad.
You think you can't be touched.
Has to think something.
You think you can't be touched. Because you've broken every vow. Except for the hair. You've broken every vow so far that's come up against you. You've thought, well, you still look like a Nazarite then. But every time that you've been pushed to keep your vow, which obviously you would have been taught about and known about, what an event that happened before your birth. Every time you're pushed, you give in. And not just give in spectacularly. You don't just go get a Philistine wife. You get her in the vineyard. You don't just touch the dead lion carcass, you eat out of it. Right? And you think that you can do that. You can get away with that because for some reason you can handle things that you've been told not to handle.
All right, so that sounds applicable. When you started going, the phrase that caught my attention is, you still look like a Nazarite.
You still look like, if people saw you walking away from the lion, if they didn't notice the honey dripping down your chin, they think, you know what, there goes that Nazarite, from the womb. But you're doing everything you can.
Ooh,
that's to challenge.
You know what? And that's a nasty picture when you think about the lion and the carcass and the honey. That's a nasty picture.
It's nasty.
But that's nasty what we are when we pretend and we look like.
Well, what is the nation doing? They're partaking in the sweet out of the unclean that God has said stay away from. They're saying, but there's a benefit, right, to not running all the Philistines out of this land. There's a benefit to compromising with their worship. There's a benefit for living the way the people around us are living.
And the picture of that benefit,
but it's out of death,
is honey in a dead lion carcass.
Dead lion's body.
You got to admit, the Bible has some pretty gruesome pictures.
How hard you have to pinch his nose to eat out of that rotted flesh.
Yeah, because there's also.
Do you see what I mean? Yeah. And yet,
he does.
God in his mercy
lets him.
Stays with Samson, is available to Samson when he needs him. You're going to find out before we get to the end of a couple chapters that God spectacularly shows up just like he does for the nation of Israel. Mm-hmm. When he calls out for him, God shows up despite that. It's not just rebellion. It's flagrant. It is, I will show you I'll do what I want. Right? It's disgusting.
There's just no way around that. Ooh.
Yeah.
But if you applied that to us today, it should be just as disgusting for what
people
we
do it under grace, and they say, well, because see, Christ died for my sins, and he covered me, and he cleanses me with all that is absolutely true. He's the only way I'm going to heaven. It's not on my goodness or anything I do or don't do. That is true. So people will say, because of the grace of God, I can do anything I want to do. Right? And I can push the limit. I mean, everybody, the Bible says don't do this, but I can handle it because I'm under grace. Mm-hmm. I can do these things that God has told us
Which
that are
is
wrong
interesting
to do.
because 2,000 years ago, that's what Paul wrote. The whole
Right.
book of Romans
God
and 2 or 3
forbid.
other things. He said that over and over and over. Why do you think you can just do
said,
anything
why
you
are
want
you
to?
living like you're dead when you've been made alive?
Right.
Why are you doing that? And this, Samson, why are you living like a Philistine when you were born to free your people from their oppression. Why are you living like they're living?
And why are you blatantly doing these things? I mean, flagrantly just... Ugh. Well, I know one thing. If you think about honey out of a dead lion's carcass, you might change your mind on what you decide to do. That's
right. That is gross.
All right. We're just going to get to go, what were you thinking? Anyway, so his father went down to the woman, and Samson made there a feast, for so used the young men to do. So, here's
the tradition, right?
The tradition that I want to say this out loud because there is a similarity here. So, in the olden days, back in here in this time, the parents made the arrangement for the wedding, right? There was an agreement made, and we agreed.
They did that already.
And then he goes down and when he goes down, he's supposed to take the wife with him, but in this case, he hasn't taken the wife with him, but they did make a feast and they did celebrate.
It's a days long.
Sometimes it's 7, 14 days. It can be a long time. And it's like a giant party, and, everybody's in on this.
But the covenant's already been made.
The covenant's made. So when you relate that to Jesus and his church, you can see some of the agreement's been made. When you accept Christ, you're in the agreement. You don't see him yet. Sometimes they don't ever see him until they go get their bride. So there's a lot of picture there about custom and how they did things. And, if you know the back of the book and when we're called to go to the bridegroom, that's at the rapture. We're going to be out of here. There's a celebration. There's a dining table. Remember all the stuff that you know. So that's a good picture. But here we go with Samson and his father went down to the woman. Samson made there a feast, as so used to men to do. And it came to pass when they saw him that they brought 30 companions to be with him. 30. I kept thinking about the 30. There has to be some clue in that number. 30 pieces of silver, but 30. And Samson said unto them, I will not put forth, he says, I will now put forth a riddle unto you. If you can certainly declare it me within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 sheets and 30 changes of garments. So we know this feast is 7 days long. Yes?
At least this part, yeah.
And he's going to give them a riddle.
Okay, so let's put something we can. It's like a bachelor party. Right? They're getting ready for the wedding feast. I don't know what the bride is doing in her, but he's hanging out with all these guys, and he's in the place of the vineyard, and he's in. It doesn't say that he drank. Well,
I think they are.
Samson. It says the father went down unto the woman. She agreed.
But when they go to
But right now it's a feast. Because when he goes to pick up the wife, you're going to find out they don't let her happen.
There's two here.
Her.
Because this says it came to pass on the 7th day, they said to Samson's wife, entice thy husband.
Right, but so they haven't even...
They're married.
Okay.
A Jewish tradition would usually say right here when the feast starts, they're married. He came to get his bride.
Okay.
And there's another one in here.
He's not with his bride right now.
No,
right now he's with 30 men. They're there partying and
he's having a riddle
and full
contest.
of himself. And he says, "I've got a riddle you can't solve."
And of course, nobody.
And before we even answer the riddle or talk about the riddle, where does the riddle come from? Something he shouldn't have done. Right? This wonderfully delightful thing that you want to brag about is something that you had no business being into to start with. But God is going to use this to begin a process, despite yourself, of freeing the nation from the Philistines.
If you cannot, verse 13, but if you cannot declare it me, then shall you give me 30 sheets and 30 changes of garments. And they said unto him, put forth thy riddle that we may hear it. So we're looking for 30 changes of garments. Right? And he said unto them,
he's absolutely certain they'll never get this.
Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they could not in 3 days expound the riddle.
And he is just laughing. He's just sitting back going, they'll never get it.
And it came to pass on the 7th day that they said unto Samson's wife, entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? And Samson's wife wept before him and said, Thou dost but hate me and lovest me not. Can't you just hear her?
I don't blame her.
Because she's afraid for her family and herself, right?
The whole thing.
Thou hast put forth a riddle unto the children of my people, and hast not told it me.
Another example for the nation, for the Christian church, and for Samson is when you join yourself with the enemy and you expect loyalty out of them that you are offering them. When the church of God compromises with what the devil's doing and what his plans are, and then you expect loyalty and you expect fidelity, you're an idiot. And you're the one that's going to end up burned. The threat is to her family and to herself. But do you know, she could have told Samson.
And she could have went straight to her.
The Samson that's going to avenge this in a minute and mightily and in the Spirit of God is the Samson she could have went to and said, hey, this is what they said to me. And he could have taken care of it properly.
But she didn't.
But instead she goes, there's no fidelity. There's no connection.
She doesn't have it even.
Because why did you expect her to? Right? Why would you expect her?
Oh, is this you knew it was a snake when you picked it up?
But so did Israel. Every time they did these compromised relationships with other gods and other sin that they shouldn't have been into, they knew better. And then when they get in trouble and these gods can't help them because they're not gods at all, right?
Yeah.
They're the one that ends up burned. They're the ones that ends up in trouble.
I know people who know me know this story because I've said it a lot, but I thought this is one of the best stories I heard. Rick used it one time in his sermon about this little boy. Can I tell it or should I not? This little boy who, it's cold and he's walking down the road and he sees a rattlesnake, and the rattlesnake is just almost froze to death. It's ready to die. He picks up, the snake says, pick me up, put me in your pocket. I just need to get warm. And the little boy says, nope. Can't do that. You're a rattlesnake. You can't do that. You'll bite me and then I'll die. No, I won't because it's so cold. You don't want me to die. Here, put me in your pocket. I'll warm up and then I'll go off and I'll leave you alone. The little boy picks up. The snake gets warm. The snake bites him. And as the little boy's dying, the snake, he says, but you promised you weren't going to do that. And the line that I love is the snake answers and says, you knew I was a rattlesnake when you picked me up. I love that story because I think that's what's appropriate here.
She's not answering.
She hasn't got the same.
As Samson's wife. She's answering as the Philistine daughter.
She has no.
And what did he expect her to do?
Yeah. Because you know, right. she's not.
What did he expect her?
She's not from your nation. She's not from your people.
Not just that, she doesn't know your God.
She doesn't know your God. She doesn't know your manners.
What He's called you to do.
Anything. How would you expect her? How could she not do what she did?
She did exactly what she was supposed to do.
Because you knew she was a Philistine when you picked her up. No offense, it could be anything. It could be an alcoholic. It could be anything. You knew that when you picked him up. Right? I don't know. I just think that's a really good thought to keep in your mind. And women are so bad because we always think we can change them.
And men too.
We think we can change them. We think we can make them better. And no. And, the story would have been completely different if she had just told him. They threatened. They came because they can't answer.
If she'd answered as his wife instead of as their daughter.
That's true.
Right?
So, verse 16, and Samson's wife wept before him and said, Thou dost hate me and lovest me not. Thou hast put forth a riddle unto the children of my people, and hast not told it to me. And he said unto her, Behold, I have not told it to my father nor my mother. And shall I tell it thee? And she wept before him the 7 days while their feast lasted. And it came to pass on the 7th day that he told her, he told her because she lay sore upon him, and he told the riddle, and I can't read. And she told the riddle to the children of her people. And the men of the city said unto him on the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, If ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle.
In other words, she works for you. She's not loyal to me. If
You used mine. You used mine.
You didn't get this because you were brilliant, because you played fair, because you entered into this in good faith. You cheat. Mm-hmm. And you've proven to me that my marriage, this is a joke. Mm-hmm. Right? She's not loyal to me. She's loyal to you.
Mm-hmm. Verse 19. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments unto them which expounded the riddle.
Paid his debt.
He killed their people to do that.
And paid the
debt.
And
his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as his friend.
Like his best man. Mm-hmm. So instead of him being able to be married, he hasn't even got through the feast, mm-hmm. right? And to live as a married man, and she's been given to someone else. Couldn't have happened
because he left to kill the 30 men, and then he went to his father's house because he's mad.
Right.
So it's as if he left them
at the same time,
and they don't care if he's gone.
Your moral standards and his moral standards are not the same. Mm-hmm. Your understanding of a covenant, his understanding of a covenant are not the same. Mm-hmm. Right? We're not the same. Now you tried to compromise with them and then expect them to live up to your standard.
It's not going to.
And it's not going to, because you didn't live up to your standard either. Mm-mm. Right? You're in a mess.
Which is kind of a terrible situation for this.
You were trying to eat honey out of something dead.
Yep.
You're trying to take honey.
I love honey.
Out of a dead, rotten body. It's the same thing.
And it just...
That whole scenario was a warning from God to Samson about this situation to come. The whole thing was saying, yuck!
What are you doing?
Stop before you go down to Timnath. Stop before you go marry this woman. Don't try to take honey out of something dead. Mm-hmm. Right? Separate yourself. Mm-hmm. It's a warning. We ignore the warning and we get the consequences. But God's not done with Samson.
But God is not done with him.
So
you'd think he'd almost be, wouldn't you? But aren't you glad he's long-suffering?
No, God's going to use everybody. He's using what he did to accomplish his purpose.
And we know that because he said so. Mm-hmm. The mother and the father knew not that it was of the Lord that he did these things. So, verse 15, verse 1.
Chapter 15.
I'm sorry, chapter 15. I don't know what.
That's okay.
Chapter 15, verse 1. But it came to pass within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid, and he said...
Not his wife who had a kid, but his wife with a goat.
With a wife with a goat.
Right.
And he said, I will go into my wife into the chamber.
Because he doesn't know they've given his wife to someone else.
But her father would not suffer him to go in. And her father said, I verily thought that thou hast utterly hated her. Therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. I cannot imagine that right there. That whole conversation just makes me go, really? Mm-hmm. You really? Mm-hmm. And Samson said concerning them, now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took firebrands, and turned tail to tail, and put a firebrand in the midst between two tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burn up both the shocks and also the standing corn, and with the vineyards and olives. That's pretty. 30 foxes. Wonder how long that took to do. Mm-hmm. Then the Philistines said, who hath done this? And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he had taken his wife and given her to his companion. And the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father with fire.
So his wife and his father-in-law, not killed by Samson, killed by the Philistines, because they had a moral standard too. Mm-hmm. Different, but they had one too. But they're not going to stop there. Because he's done damage to them. He's done damage to their crops. He's done damage to their livelihoods. And now they're after Samson.
And it's verse 7. And Samson said unto them, though ye have done this, yet will I be avenged of you. And after that I will cease. And he smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. And he went down and dwelt in the top of the rock of Edom. Keep going. Verse 9, Then the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah and spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why are you come up against us? And they answered, To bind Samson are we come up, to do to him as he hath done to us.
So Samson's now among the territory of Judah. Mm-hmm. The Philistines come and encamp their army against Judah's territory. Mm-hmm. Judah goes, We didn't do anything to you, right? And they say, Because Samson is there, and here's what he's done to us. So Judah is going to his own people, think of this, who he was born to save. Mm-hmm. His own people are going to turn him over to the enemy because they see the righteousness of the Philistine cause. Mm-hmm. They don't want trouble with the Philistines. They're going to turn him over. So,
verse 11.
That. What a mess he's in.
He's in he can't, it just gets worse and worse. Verse 11. Then 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Etam and said to Samson, Knowest thou not that the Philistines are rulers over us? What is this that thou hast done unto us? And he said unto them, As they did unto me, so have I done unto them. And they said unto him, We are come down to bind thee, that we may deliver thee into the hand of the Philistines. And Samson said unto them, Swear unto me that ye will not fall upon me yourselves. And they spake unto him, saying, No, but we will bind thee fast and deliver thee into their hand. But surely we will not kill thee. And they bound him with 2 new cords and brought him up from the rock. Mm-hmm. And it came to pass unto Lehi. And when he came unto Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the cords that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his hands loosed from off, and his bands loosed from off his hands. And he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men therewith.
Okay, so this surely looked like the end of Samson. He's bound by the men of Judah. He's brought to the Philistines. Listen to me. He has no reason to think or expect that God's going to do anything to get him out of this situation. Mm-hmm. He's gotten himself into this mess, but God didn't abandon Samson. He had intended and said what was going to happen before the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. So when he gets there, the Holy Spirit falls on him. He's filled with the strength of God. He may not be a huge, muscular, terrible-looking, fierce, supernatural, powered superhero. He's just a man bound, brought to them. I don't know what he looks like. The Bible doesn't tell us that. Mm-hmm. We know that when the Spirit of God fell on him, he had power to do things that only God could allow him to do. And that's what he did. 1,000 men, that's quite a few that he fought against that day. 1 to 1,000. But that was the promise God gave Israel. God said, if you will follow me, if you will do these commandments, 1 will chase 1,000. You know, all God's doing is what he said he would do. All God's doing is what he said he would do.
Someone should have known that.
He's saying to the nation of Israel, when you realize that there is nothing you can do to save yourself, and you brought this all on yourself, do you know if you call out to me? Right?
Just go.
And so I don't even know that Samson called out to him. God just showed them through Samson. Look what he did when he was filled with the Spirit of God. Look what I want to give you if you turn to me.
But just like his wife, they don't turn to him. They don't turn to the one that can help them. I wonder how often in our situations, if we would just turn to the one that could help us, instead of just continue. I mean, this mess just gets bigger and bigger and bigger because you just keep trying to do it yourself.
But he couldn't do it himself. That's not what happened.
Nope. Verse 16, and Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone have I slain 1,000 men. I'm being careful with how I say that so Facebook doesn't get mad at me. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking, that he cast away the jawbone out of his hand, and called the place
Ramath Lehi.
Ramath Lehi.
Jawbone Heights. Sunshine lives in Jawbone Heights.
Sunshine. Verse 18, and he was sore athirst and called on the Lord and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance into the hand of thy servant.
And now I shall die.
And now I shall die for thirst.
You know what? Now that the Spirit of God is
fall into the hand of the uncircumcised.
I don't know how that even happened, and I'm just going to say, I'm so thirsty, I'm literally going to die. But thanks.
But God clave a hollow place that was in the jaw, and there came water thereout, and he had drunk. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called the name thereof
in Hakkoreh,
which is in Lehi unto this day.
Which means the spring of he who called.
And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years.
Okay, so let's talk about this water. out of a dead bone. Ugh. Even a live bone doesn't hold water.
No.
You'd have marrow that might keep you alive. That's not what's happening here. Mm-hmm. This isn't something natural. In my Bible it says, perhaps the jawbone was sitting upon an artisanal well.
Maybe.
And perhaps not. Because what the Bible says is, God broke that bone, and out of that broken place came out water. Mm-hmm. And Samson drank and was revived.
He clave a hollow place.
What this is a miracle. Mm-hmm. And it's no different than the miracle of water into wine, mm-hmm. of a well in your belly springing up eternally. This water of life that only God can give, right? This isn't figurative water here. This is real water out of something dead. Again, think of the nation. Mm-hmm. You know what? The nation of Israel in a dead state, in an apostate state, as far from God as they can get. And God said, I'm going to break it. And out of that brokenness is going to come a well of water springing up, right? Mm-hmm. The day spring, mm-hmm. right? The sunrise, the one that's going to come and have the water of life, the one who is the water of life. This picture again of God is not done with this nation. Mm-hmm. Yet he can do, not only did he do things that got the nation to the place where Jesus was born, in that nation a well was opened up, right? Mm-hmm. A place was opened. Dan is the northern kingdom. Mm-hmm. Didn't he say that? That those in the northern kingdom have seen a great light, right? This mm-hmm. great thing is coming to them. Isaiah said, this fountain opened up for these people. So this picture that God is still going to accomplish his purpose, mm-hmm. you're worn out, you couldn't do it, but God through his Holy Spirit mm-hmm. did it through you and for you. Mm-hmm. And to you, right? It's just, again, you're not going to stop his purpose. And can you imagine how surprised Samson must have been when out of something dead?
Twice.
Right? But the first death, right? That first death didn't have something in it that God was giving him as a gift, but something that was for his downfall, going the wrong direction. Out of this death, there's water. Mm-hmm. There's life springing up out of this. This is a different kind of, God clave that bone.
So it said, clave a hollow place.
God did this
in the jaw.
Interesting.
It
does say that the Spirit of God enabled him to kill that lion, so it didn't eat him, right? But God never told him to go eat that honey out of a dead thing. God did give him water.
And he still gave him victory, even though he failed.
And he judged Israel 20 years. That's always slip my... You know what? 20 years happened when he wasn't doing anything horrible. Yeah. For 20 years, after God saved his life right here, Samson judges Israel the way he's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. What's interesting, people say, well, young men make a lot of mistakes. Young men fall into foolishness and folly and depravity. So do old men, apparently, because when we get back together next time,
he does the same. He does more.
As an older man, 20 years apart in these stories, he falls for the same temptations the same. But so does the nation. How many times have we watched them do the same thing? Generations that serve God, and then you forgot everything you knew.
I wonder though how many these 3,000 men that went up to tie him up and give him to the Philistines, it doesn't mention anything that they did. Mm-mm. It doesn't say anything. No. He took on 1,000 by himself.
Had he been separated as he was told to be, these 3,000 are his men. These 1,000 are behind him. That's not where he's at. Mm-hmm. He's in a place where he's gotten completely out of control. Mm-hmm. And yet God has not abandoned Samson.
So we only have just about 7-8 minutes left.
That's all right. And we don't have to go to a certain time anyway.
So what do you think? So how should we so when we talk about Samson and there's all this conflict of, I mean, just to read it sometimes it's kind of like, wow.
It connects in my mind to the first Adam and the second Adam. I think for Adam in the Garden of Eden, his sin brought death to everyone. That makes me think of that first death and how there's no help in that. There's more confusion in that. There's more problem and there's curse in that. That just keeps getting worse and deeper and deeper. But the death of Christ brought life, right? And when he's broken, it makes up for what Adam lost. He regained what's there. You know, despite himself, he's showing a picture of the redemption of the world. Not just Israel, but of the redemption of the world. How God shows up when there's nothing we can do to help ourselves. We are completely without strength. And he shows up and does what only he can do. We're getting ready to teach a lesson on the Sabbath tomorrow. And that's what it's all about. Is not what I can do, but what God can do. And the fact that I can rest in him, right, when I'm at the end of me. And I can come to rest in him and what he's able to do.
And I know we're going to say it a lot tomorrow because it's just the kind of the point of the whole thing. But God is strangely quiet through this, don't you think? I mean, he doesn't say,
I mean, the
come
spirit
on,
will fall,
Samson. But he doesn't come down. But he doesn't come down and say, don't do this.
He's allowing him to make his choices.
I mean, even in Jonah, like when Jonah does something, he goes after him. He doesn't go after him. He lets him just do. You know what I mean? I noticed that he doesn't say anything. And the truth is, and this is the point to your lesson tomorrow too, he delights in showing us that he can be there. And yet we don't delight in finding him in things.
But we ought to.
Shouldn't we?
He is a delight.
Because he's not here. You don't see Jesus, you don't see God saying, Samson, don't go down there, go here. You don't see that same thing you see in Jonah and some of the others.
We're not given any details in these 20 years. Like you said, we can't add things that aren't there. But as far as the text is concerned, he's not, his wife's dead. He's not remarried. He's apparently.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Single for 20 years. Judging Israel for 20 years. Maybe getting a little bit wiser in 20 years.
Maybe his mom and dad
but
are
eventually,
relaxing a little bit.
Right? Those same old tendencies to not stay separated into the purposes of God creep back into his life. And it'll happen in a cycle just like it has with the nation. Right?
It does. And only the next time it's even worse.
Cost him even more.
I think it is even worse.
And yet God will redeem it. God will use it for what his purpose is.
And we should do that. We should go over to Hebrews chapter 11. Just to make sure that, you know, it makes sense why we're saying that God can use this situation. You think I could go right to Hebrews? Chapter 11 of Hebrews, of around verse 32. This is why you have to be careful when you're studying Scripture, what kind of personality you put on these people. Yes, he's a conflict event. He's a conflict all kinds of ways. But in Hebrews, it says, what shall I say more? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon. We know what Gideon did. He was the poor guy hiding in the dark, right?
Who won a great victory over more than anyone could number through the power of God and no battle fought.
And he still failed, though, right? Because he
still had trouble.
At the end of him, we failed. Of Barak, who had Deborah.
Wouldn't go without Deborah.
Wouldn't go without her, right?
Yeah.
And of Samson.
Yeah.
And then it says, and of Jephthah. Jephthah, the one who
made a foolish vow.
Right? So when we're
tell of what?
So
the fact that God used them and their faith in him was more than enough.
What does it say? And it says, and what shall I say more? For time would fail me to tell you of Gideon and of Barak and of Samson and Jephthah, of David also and Samuel of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong.
Out of weakness.
And I think that's the key. Out of weakness is made strong. And we forget sometimes that God tells us over and over, he uses the weak things to confound the wise. Waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens, Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others, and I just read this part because I like this part. The point I'm making by reading it, though, is we can't say Samson was not doing what he was. He's in the Hall of Faith in the book of Hebrews. He is mentioned specifically. And I went and looked because I wasn't sure he would be, but he was. Verse 36 in Hebrews chapter 11, and others had trials of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented. And my favorite line is, of whom the world was not worthy. There are a lot of people who go through a lot more than what we go through at all for the gospel of Christ. And we can think about, I got a thing on my wall in my study that has all these nations where there's missionaries who, it reminds you to pray for them because where they are, they can die. And it would be legal for them to be killed for being there talking about Christ. Sometimes I think we think our messes are way too big and you have no idea what other people have survived and gone through. Of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains and dens and in caves. And all these, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect.
We've got something better than they had. They had faith in the one to come, and we've got the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And I do want to say, as a word of caution as we close this out, be really careful when you think to yourself and say out loud that guy or this girl is a lost cause, because you may have to read about them in the Hall of Faith someday.
Yes, you do.
God said they were doing exactly what I was using them to do.
What I knew they would do.
And by faith, they subdued nations.
And failures and all.
So it's not up to you whether they're a lost cause. It's not up to you with whether they're qualified to do what God's called them to do. God can do what he wants to do, and he will.
With whomever he wants.
And it's not the people that stand on the sidelines. It's the people that by faith will get into the will of God sometimes. Backwards, head over heels, and dragged. But they'll get into where God is using them to accomplish his purpose. And God gives them honor. Why does he do that? Because he's God, and he does. He will share that honor with them.
It also reminds me that no matter what you think it is that you do, you really think, we should
do it, and you don't.
And you're not the one doing it anyway. God has put you where you are for a reason.
It's by faith and weakness.
To do whatever it is in his plan you're there to do. It doesn't always have to be a great big thing. Just do what you're supposed to do. Right? Be what you are. Be what he made you. Use the talents he gave you. Because you never know what your talent is being used for. I'm sure when Samson was doing all those things, obviously the nation of Israel didn't think very much of him because they weren't there to support him.
But he was a beautifully big gilt mirror of them.
Yes, he was.
So they may not have thought a lot of him, but he's reflecting exactly their spiritual state.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of God.
And that should be what we should be. We should be careful what we say about who can and who can't and who should and who shouldn't. We have no idea. We should.
You think sometimes God gives you the leaders you deserve?
Yes, I do think he gives us the leaders we deserve.
And that we should recognize ourselves in, and we say, you know what is wrong with all these people? What's wrong with the people they represent?
That's what we should say first. And we don't. We always start running to somebody else. I know
what
some
they
people
say
that
about who we are.
So angry about so many things, and you can't accomplish much that way. Right? All right. Well, we're out of time, so we'll stop right here. We'll pick up what chapter are we on. I shut my book. 16?
It'll be 16 next time.
Okay, so we'll start on Judges chapter 16 at our next time here. Stay battle ready. Pray for our churches. Pray for those around you who are trying to do God's work in all kinds of different ways. Try to be a help to somebody. And keep your Bibles open. Stay battle ready.